Hey y'all, what's up? Hey, I feel like it's been
Hey,
I feel
hold
like it's
on.
been 100 years.
Hold on. I realized I had my volume down. Sorry.
Is that,
What'd you say?
I said I feel like it's been 100 years.
I just realized, the people in my live are telling me how long it's been. It's literally like this is only for you. This is 2.5 years I haven't done this.
Well, I
So
appreciate you for this. I think it's an important conversation. And that's why, and I won't keep you very long. So for
yeah,
all my people coming in first, and for Jess's people too, tap your screen because if you can get us to 10,000, that helps push it out, and it's all good. And I'm going to go and encourage my followers to follow you as well. But Jess is one of my favorite creators. She's a mental health creator, and in fact, if you've bought Boundaries, she is the blurb on the back. That's how much I value her. Okay, so give her a follow. And the reason I asked her to come on is so right now. Um, Eric Menendez is sitting before virtually sitting before the parole board in California. His brother Lau goes up tomorrow. Funny enough, and I didn't realize this till today, the anniversary of the murders was yesterday. So the timing
ooh,
is
wow.
very eerie, right? Um, but the reason I asked Jess to come on is because we've had a lot of conversations. When this account was first, my account was first, like primarily narcissistic and toxic abuse. We did a lot together, and then she retired from lives forever, and and she came back for this. But one of the things when we talk about the Menendez brothers is people, like they killed for the killed for the money, or why didn't they just leave? They were grown adults, and the thing is, I look at that as being, and I'm not mad at y'all for this, the people who think that way. I look at that as being a very privileged statement because it means that you haven't been in a situation like that to know how they kind of get you under their thumb, especially when the abuse has started at the age that theirs did, which was 6 years old. And you're talking about, both sexual, physical, verbal, emotional abuse, for the most part by both parents. Maybe not sexual from the mom, but, she was an enabler because she knew what was going on. So the reason I asked Jess on here because she is a licensed practicing therapist with her own very large clinic, mind you, very successful at it. I think she doesn't mind if I say this. She too is a victim of or survivor of abuse, and so I feel like because of her background, because of her credentials, that makes us like a very good place to start and have her on here to kind of talk about the Menendez and their situation.
Yeah.
That's my
Um,
introduction for you, by the way.
yeah, no, that's awesome. A lot of the people who follow me are also saying they follow you or have just followed you. So
Oh, awesome! Thank you, guys.
pretty cool. And some people don't know that we know each other, so that's pretty fun. We go way years back on
Yeah,
this.
we text, so even if she's
Yeah.
never on here, and so that's why she did this favor for me, which I do appreciate it because
Oh, it's fun. It was like coming back. Like I was telling people before you jumped on that I used to do this all the time.
you were on all the time. But then what happened was we'll be very honest. She got a lot of very, we don't have to go into details, but very hateful people in her lives, and it got to a point that the stress of it wasn't worth her continuing. So and we'll leave that at that. But so I kind of wanted to talk about. I know you know a little bit about. You're not as well versed, obviously, as I've gone down the rabbit hole with it, but you know the basics. You've seen the documentaries. You kind of know what's happening. So I guess, do you want to start with? And you can ask me any questions if you need any like lead up, but like the murders, like why they felt that was their only way out. And granted, a lot of people get abused and they don't do that, but they did.
Right. I mean, I think for some people it's like, and assuming this applies to them, I mean, that is the only path, like depending on, how insidious and how repetitive and how long, and it really colonizes your brain. And I think that's what a lot of people who haven't experienced long-term systemic abuse, especially within the family, like how much that can profoundly affect you and your ability to think clearly, your ability to think rationally. So for those of us, looking in on the outside thinking, oh, there's so many other options, there's so many different ways that that could have been handled, that's not necessarily an option, or it's not something you consider when you're really in the middle of it. I mean, you're just looking to become safe again. And when you've had a lifetime of not being safe and living without safety, you'll do just about anything to try to get it.
and they felt too, and I don't know if you knew this part, but they felt too, according to to their version of events, that Lyle found out about the dad abusing Eric and confronted him about it. And the dad was furious because they were told not to ever tell anybody, including each other. And so, Lyle allegedly threatened, his father, like, you're not going to touch him again. And basically the dad's like, well, you made your decision. And he had threatened to, kill them in the past if they did. And so, they, according to, again, their version of events, they felt that their lives were in danger.
Right. Right, absolutely. And that's a really common way that people are kept down too, is that threat. If you do this, this will happen. If you tell, this will happen. I mean, that's a really common tactic used by abusers. And yeah, I know, I watched the documentary. I know some about the case, but certainly not as much as you do. But, from what it looks like, they had to endure and survive many different layers of trauma and abuse, sexual, physical, psychological, like all of them, basically ongoing, persistent for almost the duration of their, growing up years, adolescent, teen, like it just was so ongoing and pervasive. It prevented them from living any kind of normal life. And I think, as they got older, they started to see that they were really different, and it's hard to overcome that.
And to address a comment somebody made, nobody is justifying murder. Nobody's justifying, quote, blowing them away, as you put it. What we're doing is we're here to have a conversation of the why that it led to that. Nobody justifies murder. Like, there's never a reason for that, but it's to understand why it happened, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. The other thing, not justifying, understanding. That's a great way of putting it. Thank you. And then let's also go back to, and I know that you and I were both very, very young because we're about the same age when this happened, but let's go back to that time period when, abuse didn't happen to boys. And if it did happen, it was very, even if it was a girl, it was still very much swept under the rug. And so let's talk about your experience with that, because I'm quite sure you have clients that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, predominantly, not recently, but maybe over the past, 10 or 15 years, I worked with almost predominantly male clients and, survivors of childhood sexual abuse and assault, and, also religious components there too. So it is exceptionally common for people who are, our age or even a little younger and older to that be highly, highly stigmatized and not really shared. And, I know for a lot of my clients, I was definitely the first person that they were ever open with. They were, told to keep their mouths shut, or that it just wasn't acceptable. There wasn't, and that was what struck me about the case too. There just wasn't help for them. Like, they weren't able to, really access, proper help and support when it would have been needed. So yeah, that was actually a lot of my takeaway from their case, is like, they didn't really stand a chance. You can only be put through so much before you break or before you crack. It's almost literally impossible not to have that happen. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize because they haven't been there.
Which is, again, it's a nice privilege to have, to not have been where they are. The other thing too, and let me see how I want to word this. So a lot of people have also asked, well, why didn't they just tell their therapist? Because they had a therapist. I don't know if you knew that, but they had a therapist, Dr. Oziel, who was a court-ordered therapist because they had gotten in trouble for, I don't remember if it was burglary or breaking and entering, some kind of charge like that. And part of it was that they had to go to counseling, which their father dictated the counseling and told the counselor to tell them, basically to tell him everything that they say. And they did that. Heidi asked a great question, so I'm going to put this one out so we can come back to it. So can we talk about how abuse affects the brain and chemicals? I want to come back to that in a second if we can. But they don't understand why did they didn't just go in and just tell their therapist right away that the abuse is happening?
Right. And, the whole, I know how it was, I saw how it was depicted in the series, and I'm not totally sure how accurate that was, but, that therapist was, pretty problematic, and there was no, there was no confidentiality. I don't think the boys would have ever considered that that was an actual, like, true safe space. And I think that, the father kind of used that as a tool to still keep them kind of oppressed. And in that scenario, there was that still wasn't going to be effective. There really wasn't any outlet for them to process anything that was actually happening.
And the other thing I think that's also worth mentioning from that time period, especially with them being boys and it being, their father, so male on male, you see how the LGBTQ plus community is treated today. Think about how it was back then, especially during the start of, or right at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic and things like that. So for them to come in and say, oh yeah, we're boys and we're being abused by our father, it's something harder for them to do.
Exactly. Yeah, like I'm saying, like every odd was stacked against them from the jump, basically. Like every single step along the way, they couldn't. There wasn't going to be another path based on what actually happened to them.
Yeah. So, do you want to? Before I get to the other things, do you want to talk about the way the chemical abuse affects the chemicals in the brain? Because I think that's fascinating too.
Yeah, because you can actually see it, you can see it on an MRI. People who have endured long-term abuse or trauma, like the actual, shapes. And I'm not the person who's exactly skilled in this area to talk about it, but it is really fascinating. Like the shape of your brain changes, that your cortisol levels increase for potentially years on end. Like you actually end up sort of being a different person after enduring, and that's how I explain it to a lot of my clients too. Like you have the capacity to kind of figure out how to compensate for that, but you're kind of permanently altered to some degree when you've had persistent ongoing abuse of any kind.
So yeah, and the other thing I'll just tack onto this, because I know this, and it's not what we're talking about, but just so people know, when you look at kids who are spanked, in the MRI show pretty much the same results as somebody severely abused.
Right.
That's how the brain interprets it. Just so you all aware. So if you are somebody who spanks your child, know that if they go get an MRI, the brain is going to show the same patterns as if. Like it doesn't know the difference between you spanking them on their bottom and literally punching them in the face.
Exactly.
Like the brain has no difference in that. So just so y'all are aware. All right, so let's go past the murder for a minute, and it's done. They've completed it. It happened in Beverly Hills, where this type of stuff didn't happen. They go on a spending spree, and a lot of people, like, because of that, they wanted the money. And what I've kind of said to them is that when people escape situations like that, going on a spending spree, I mean, retail therapy is a thing, okay? And I love retail therapy. When I'm down or I go buy myself something or whatever, it's a thing. But my budget is not a $12 million estate, okay? Which theirs was. So whereas I might go to Target and buy something, like I might buy a record or something like that, they went out and bought Porsches and Rolexes. Because we were in very different income brackets.
Right.
So.
And I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that too. And I think that's what people get really hung up on, is their behavior after the fact and why they didn't seem, remorseful, or why they're going on a spending spree or living a lavish life. Like they're doing all of these things, and they're doing all of those things because they can. And they're also in a highly dissociative shock space for a long time. Like they solved their problem, so to speak, right? Like they
were free for the first time.
Absolutely. Like they finally were free of this ongoing, pervasive, damaging problem that would never be a problem for them again, right? Like there's such a sense of freedom and relief that it almost seems like a very obvious, like for them to behave that way seems incredibly obvious why that would happen. Because it's like you just, yeah, like, So, yeah, to me, that doesn't stand out as something that, to me, that's not very odd behavior by any stretch, because it's like, if I mean, they decades of pervasive, issues.
That was one of the things that the DA during the time argued, was like, well, they were just spoiled brats who wanted the money. So, and the thing about it is yes, they were being abused, but Jose bought them their cars. They bought them all the clothes, bought the trips. So they weren't like, if they wanted something, they got it, for the most part. A lot of people also say, this is one of my favorite ones, because again, I know you don't know it as well, so I can go and tell you that there have been a lot of experts who have reviewed this case over the last 35 or so years, and their actions, their testimony in court,
Right.
where they talk about the abuse, etc. And most of them say, oh yeah, this is just classic textbook. Basically this is classic textbook abuse victims is what this is. And a lot of people are like, oh, they made this up. And one thing that I try to stress about this is, again, you have to think about the time period. You can't look at, you can't look at 1989 through 1996 when the trials and everything happened. You can't look at it through the same lens as you look at 2025, because the internet didn't exist. You didn't have instant access to information. Like, I can go into ChatGPT and say something like, hey, I want to fake that I was abused, and it could probably give me a bunch of different things to say and do. They didn't have that.
Exactly. Right. You can't fake. I mean, that's very, like, it's interesting that is often people's go-to response is to act like people are just making it up for attention. Like, that's not a thing that is actually common. Like, that's not a thing that we see clinically. People do not usually make up abuse. And like you're saying, they don't really even have the ability to fool people. Like, today, maybe if people really want to put their energy into, getting a script from ChatGPT and acting it out for whatever purpose, sure. But like back then, no, there's no access. There's no, it would be very hard to convince me that they didn't experience that level.
The best you would have had was an Encyclopedia Britannica volume set that maybe had a blurb on
Right.
on abuse, if that was even in there. And then on top of that, like you said, you have to act it. And you saw the documentary, so you saw how they testified. And either they're the greatest actors I've ever seen, or that was 100% genuine.
Exactly. Like, it's right. I mean, that you're not going to be able to fake that. Like, that's just not, I don't think that is what happened. Yeah. Like I said, you're not going to convince me that they didn't endure all of that for as long as they did.
Yeah, especially, and then there are family members, I think, in the documentary, and I believe I can't remember if Anna Maria said this when I had her on, but they had witnessed things like, you can't go down that, when they were visiting, you can't go down that hallway. They would be like, oh, we knew that Jose like, even the families, like, we knew that Jose would shower with the boys. Things like, things that by today's standards would be a lot of really bright red flags.
Absolutely. Right. And it's also like, I feel like there are, other theories of like, they're just two random twin sociopaths. I mean, it takes a lot.
Oh, they're not twins either. One's older. Lyle's older.
Right. Like brothers, I'd say brother sociopath. Like, the odds of that being, like, it's just to carry. I mean, it's a gruesome thing what happened, right? So it's like you have to consider how a person could even possibly get to that place to commit that level of violence. Like, if you get pushed far and far and far enough, almost anybody can get to that place. But you don't typically get to that place without something really deeply painful, profoundly painful behind it. So
yeah. So I'm gonna use somebody here who obviously they came in. I'm gonna make this clear again. We're not sitting here again justifying murder or making excuses for murder. What we're doing is we're putting understanding. And Nini, I'm gonna pick on you for a minute, because here's the comment: they could have actually went to the authorities, but who knows? It was a different time. You want to hit on that one?
Right. Like, so that's the thing too. I mean, even today, when people go and report like nothing happens. Like, I know they're men, but women encounter this all the time. Like, you report something, it goes they don't investigate it, they don't look at it, they don't believe you, and all of that. So I can't even imagine what it would have been like if that had happened, especially with who their dad was. I mean, I don't think they would have had a shot at that. Yeah, and when you take it to that level, the repercussions or the retaliation, like what would the dad have done? Like it would have been terrible.
Yeah, and then we also had other people. A member of Menudo came forward, years later, or even fairly recently, talking about the fact that Jose had abused him, and think about how many years that's been. And then on top of that, you have letters from the family that he had written years before the murders, kind of talking about the abuse. I think one of the aunts had talked about when Lyle was 6 years old, he had put like Lyle up on a counter or something and told him to jump to him, and that he would catch him. And then Lyle jumped off the counter, and Jose stepped away, so he fell flat on his face and got hurt. And Jose was like, "There's your first lesson: don't trust anyone." Like that's what he's teaching as a 6-year-old. So again, he's definitely not a good. Even when the trial happened, the only person that they could find to speak positively about him was his secretary. Right. That was it. Nobody else. And again, like I said at the beginning, nobody here is justifying the route that they took. We're just trying to put context and understanding. Jess here is a licensed practicing therapist with a lot of experience on this type of abuse, and so that's why she's here to kind of just help take a lot of the common misconceptions and the things that people say and explain why the behavior might have been the way that it was, why things looked the way that it was, and addressing a lot of the commonalities or common things that people say when you talk about this. That's what we're doing here. Again, we're not justifying murder. Nobody is justifying murder.
Right. It's just putting it into perspective of how people get to that place. And, as a therapist, it's like I've spent 20 years listening to people's stories, and, granted, they may not be as gruesome as that, but people do things on a different scale depending on what they've experienced and what they've been put through. And obviously not everybody responds that way. Not everybody gets pushed to that limit, but they did.
Most people don't respond that way, but
yeah.
But at the same time, let's have this conversation. This didn't happen with them, but how often, which I know you know this, but how often do victims of abuse become those statistics?
How often do victims of abuse do what with us?
Become the statistic, become the fatality.
Right. Very common, and it's like. When you're undergoing like threat after threat after threat, like you just become so hypervigilant and so scared. You're never, like I said earlier, like you're never safe. You never feel safe. Your nervous system is always, in a state of distress, and you're constantly in, a fight or flight kind of response pattern, and you are going to do just about anything to relieve that and to try to make that better. And a lot of times, this stuff is, again, a lot of people have a lot of different feelings about things, and some people will just say they had no right to do what they did, and no matter what happened. But it's like you can't just look at that without the context. There's so much more context.
I would agree, and I think that if this was even 10 years ago, we might be having a very different conversation about it. Mm-hmm. But we know so much more now than we did before, and they're a classic example of. I mean, that's why it was a hung jury. The first trial was a hung jury for a month because the women believed him and the men didn't. Which is, that's part of the course. But that's typically how it goes. I mean, think about this. Even here's a good example. Even with the Diddy trial, which just happened, mm-hmm. you had women go out here and very publicly explain the darkest, most intimate details of the things that happened to them. And how many people did you see? They're just in it for the money. They knew what they were getting themselves into. Yeah, people subjected themselves to a decade and a half of getting the shit beat out of them and being abused by, sex workers because they wanted some money. Like, that's again, it's a very privileged statement, but that's the point. So why do people want to come forward? And, again, the way the boys are treated, boys still don't come forward nearly as much. And it happens to them. What is it? It's 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 8 boys.
Right. Because there, maybe at some point in time there will be less stigma, but it is still deeply problematic for boys to not only conceptualize it for themselves, but to then share that with other people. Like there's just not enough space for them to be able to come forward and process that. And I mean, if I think back to even just my own clientele and what it's like for me to work with women who are abuse survivors versus men, it's night and day. The process for them to even feel safe enough to share that. I mean, I've had clients, we might spend years working together before I'm deemed safe enough for them to talk about it or feel like there won't be so much shame, because it's not talked about. So the way that it is with women, so it's just a completely different experience.
I think that's a really, really important point that you just made, which was that, you could be counseling them, helping them for years. So that goes back to the, why did they just walk in and tell their therapist? There you go.
Right. I mean, and even for me as a therapist, like there are plenty of times where people come in on the first session and they're like ready to kind of trauma dump. And I sometimes slow them down, not because I can't handle it, but I'm like, hey, let me earn this. Like, you don't know me. So let's work on the relationship first and let me prove that I'm a safe person. Let me prove that you can trust me before you're going to come in. Because for me, that's part of the process. If somebody, wants to come in and share everything, like it's clinically relevant because, it's important for therapists to show that they're safe people, because not all of them are.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
There was, I don't know if we told you this or not, but when Alyssa had a miscarriage, she had gone to a therapist when she was trying to find one, and basically, are you out there still? Yeah. What did she say to you? That she didn't pray enough, and that's why she lost the baby.
Oh my God. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly my point. So it's like, you're going to be in your most vulnerable place and then hear something like that. And then that'll immediately for a lot of people, that'll shut them right down.
And then they're right down.
You're back to feeling unsafe, scared. And, you're not only not getting help, but you're being actively harmed in the process. So yeah, that's terrible. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't remember if she reported them or not, but I think she should have if she didn't.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was, people, that's what they said to her. That's exactly what they said to her. I don't know if there was anything else that I wanted to ask. I mean, those are all the big things, and I really appreciate you coming on. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask? Definitely follow Jess. She's a great follow. A lot of helpful stuff, even though she apparently doesn't go live like ever anymore.
Maybe I will again. I mean, a lot of people are probably like wondering what I'm even talking about and have no idea I'm a therapist because they follow me for all my like political stuff. But yeah, I've shifted a lot of what I've.
You have. You went from a lot of the therapy stuff. You went, to a little political side a little bit. That is what it is.
Yeah.
You have good reason.
Yeah. There's a lot of new people. It's funny in my comments, there's like a lot of new people who have not ever seen me go live. And
she used to go live all the time.
Yeah. I almost this time every day, like this, like 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern time, I would go live each day for easily like 2 years straight.
Yeah. You were live all the time. She'd be making dinner on lives.
I know. Yeah, it was. We had a fun little community. Oh, a lot of people remember me and Kimberly going live together. I promise y'all, she's still around. She's just on Instagram, not on.
I would be working on stuff, and so moving. She was live all the time, and so I'm appreciative. But does anybody else have any questions? We're talking about the Menendez brothers right now. Anybody else have any questions? And for the people asking, no, we do not have an update at this point. So this person goes, as a therapist, I need to follow a good socially active therapist. You're looking at it right there. So anybody else? Because I don't want to keep her. Does anybody have questions on your side about any of this?
Apparently, I have to go back to work. This is a weird day.
Okay, well,
there's a lot going on in the world right now.
there's a ton. Well, here's what I'll tell you. I appreciate you coming on. For anybody who came in late who wants to see this whole thing, I can download it and post it on YouTube. So it's just there. And I'll title it I don't know what I'll title it, but something about, understanding, the Menendez's something or other. I'll figure out what to do.
Cool.
And but I appreciate you coming on, and I know that you kind of she's like, what am I even talking about here? And I'm like, like this. But I knew that the thing is, I knew that when I got you on, I didn't have to give you a whole lot of whatever background, because I knew that we would just flow into it, and it's pretty easy. I feel like it's pretty easy stuff, because when you look at the things that people say about the case, and you look at their actions before and after everything happened, it's something that's I felt very easy for you to have a conversation on.
For sure. It's funny, just as I got a flood of, the way my internet is, I can see my referrals and my Psychology Today referrals pop up at the top of the screen. And the last two that just popped up were about abuse recovery. And I'm like, this is literally what we're talking about.
This is literally what we're talking about, in the way that
people are out here going, okay, I've survived this and I'm looking for help. I've gotten to whatever age they are, and they need help because it's affected their life, likely very profoundly.
Well, for your edification, as I said at the beginning of this, Eric is sitting in front of the parole board right now. And by the way, I don't know if you know this part. Originally, they were granted life without the possibility of parole,
Right.
And that was overturned in May to 50 to life under the youthful offender law in California. They are now immediately eligible, and there's a whole process to it. And once let's say they get approved, which there's a 13 to 14% chance that they'll get approved. That's how small it is. There's a lot of things in their favor. There's a lot of things that aren't in their favor. Things that are not in their favor is that it's a very, very famous case, and so there's a lot of scrutiny. But they've done a lot of great stuff. I don't know. You probably don't know this. So Eric in prison, they've done a bunch of things like mentoring programs and whatnot, under the pretense that they're never getting out ever.
Right.
And even Eric Menendez started a hospice program for prison that has now been adopted by the entire state penal system in California. Wow. So those are some of the good things that they did without, again, not doing it to get out, because they were never going to get out. Both graduated with sociology degrees. One of them graduated summa cum laude for this session. So, from University of California, Irvine, I think is what it was. But anyway, so my point is that's all the stuff that worked with them. And the other thing that's very interesting to me, and I don't know if you know this, there's about 20 to 24 living family members left, including Kitty Menendez's own sister. And every single one of them, the Green Space Initiative too, every single one of them is in support of them getting out.
Right. I've seen that, but
it's rare.
Right. That says a lot.
Yeah, it's unheard of, and there's also you might have seen this too. There are correctional officers who wrote letters of recommendation for them, and after decades of service, they never have written anybody recommendations, including one of them saying, "I'd be happy to let them watch my kids. I'd be happy to let them, have them be my neighbors. I would have no issue with them." Because here's the thing: I don't think they're going to reoffend. The people who were problematic are gone.
Exactly. Right. They don't have problems with other people. It was just with them.
Yeah, as long as you don't, SA them for, 15, 20 years, I think you're okay.
Right, exactly.
Anyways, well, again, everybody go follow Jess if you don't already. I'll post this up on YouTube a little bit later, and no, we don't have an answer yet, but as soon as we do, I'll let you guys know. And I think that this might be a good video for you to do. To just talk about, it's a little bit outside of your norm, but people are interested in the case, but I think that you bring... Again, I know other therapists, but you were the only one I wanted to do this with, because I feel like you're the best one to have this conversation, explain this type of abuse in a way that's very neutral and understandable. And I'm not telling you what to do for your content. I'm just saying it could be an interesting take.
I think I might. Thank you for, I hope you're the only person I would do this for. So,
I appreciate it. I know I made you go live for me after 2 years, and I am grateful.
Yeah.
So after I pestered you a little bit. So, all right, well, I will let you get back to work. Everybody, again, give Jess a follow if you don't, and I appreciate you. Maybe we'll do it again. Maybe we'll see you live again in the next year.
Anything's possible.
Yeah. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, bye.
Yeah.
All right, I'll stay on for a few minutes, guys, and talk to you. No, we don't know anything. She's very easy to talk to. We don't know anything yet as far as their parole goes. No decisions that we are aware of. But I wanted to have that conversation because one of the things, I mean, you guys know where I'm at on this, right? Like, y'all know that I'm sitting out a Substack article right now, by the way. So I started doing that right before we got on. I'm doing a Substack article that's absolutely, God, it's, somebody sent me on the Jot forum that I do, sorry, real ADD brain, and I forgot because I pulled on my computer, that they said I'll get sent like suggestions for cases, and this one I looked at and I was like, oh my God, this is like one of the most brutal cases of abuse outside of like Elena Hembry that I've ever seen. It might be the worst I've seen outside of Elena Hembry. Oh, absolutely. I got it already mailed out. Scully, thank you for getting it. Oh, thank you, Monica. So what questions, when will the public find out? We should know today. We should know today. Typically, like the vast majority of the, I'm going to check my source. The vast majority of the time we know the day of. Oh, I'm going to ask. There we go. I'll ask. So, anyway, if you guys don't follow me on Substack, you can. We're caught. Everybody's caught pretty caught. For those people who want them out or who believe that they deserve a second chance, people are on Substack. Monica are cautiously optimistic. I love Substack. I don't have nearly the following on Substack that I do anywhere else. But I absolutely love it. Because what I can do is anything like, so and on TikTok, you want to watch a video and see it quick. And on Substack, I can take a lot of these stories and put them as posts or actually entire articles. You get them to your email box or push, through a push notification, and you can actually read more detail on the stories. And it's great. It's free. You can do paid subscriptions if you want, but it's free unless you just want to support your creators. Yeah, everything same name is on here. I know I'm really bad. I need to be like Aaron Parnas and be like, what do I need to say? It's like, go to my Substack link in bio where I break this down all later today. I don't have the ability to do what he does, but is there any updates on baby Emmanuel? Not a ton that I've seen today. I know that his sister had severe abuse happen to her as well, and there is some stuff that I do know, but I can't talk about it yet until it comes out publicly. Yeah, I believe the brothers as well. And like I said, I'm going to post this live that I did with Jess on YouTube so you guys can see it a little bit later. For anybody who missed it. Yeah, the Manuel Aro case is absolutely awful. Rebecca, I had one of my mutuals friends who is a licensed practicing therapist who specializes, in abuse. We kind of went through the understanding why, not excusing the behavior, not excusing the murders that the Menendez brothers did, but understanding the why. The understanding why, not excusing the behavior, not excusing the murders that the Menendez brothers did, but understanding the why.